and it's bad, right? Like the assaults are bad. Okay, the recorder's still going, and now let's see what's happened here. Wonderful. So for some reason, the phone is turning off and on as that conversation is taking place. So now what I have is snippets of parts of that conversation, but not the whole conversation, because we just had a visit to the door. Visit to the door. Or I'm trying to be convinced that there's help. There's no help for me. Nobody cares what I have to say. Nobody cares that that house is stolen. Nobody cares that the money's been embezzled. You know, now it's 4:30 in the afternoon. I'm still, the stress has physical effects, right? Stress has physical effects. And the worst part is now I'm going to have to try to piece that conversation together. And so here's what keeps happening, right? Benjamin Howe and Senator Dennis know they're in possession of stolen property. The trespassers know they're trespassing. And what do? Now, do you see what happens? They call and they get service. When I go and I report a crime, not only am I not served, not only am I not protected, then the whole thing gets turned around on me and I'm the asshole because I've said something. So this is ridiculous. There's 6 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 9 minutes, another close to 9 minutes of a conversation. Somebody named Jordan and his partner. And I can't open that door. I mean, because nobody was there when I got falsely arrested on December the 14th, 2010. Yeah, there was 5 of them. There was 5 assailants. There was 5 violent assailants who had been lied to about a restraining order. I was never served, so I did not know about it. And they did that to me on purpose, because the whole thing is, when your biological real property is kidnapped, if you don't have a criminal record, the coven acting as the family court is going to guarantee you that you will receive a criminal record if you fight for your property, and if you fight for what is right, and if you fight for what is good. So what should have happened on November the 27th, 2021, when I went to the door of the Saanich Police Department, and Jeff Bevington came to the door, and then Jeff Bevington refused to hear. Then the male acting as the sergeant came to the door. That was Mike Duquette. And again, I'm not being heard. I'm not being listened to. They haven't even actually read the package of information that I've just dropped off. They're not interested in the information. And then I explain that that's stolen property, which means there's trespassers on that property. And then I'm informed that no, those would be tenants. Well, no, they can't be tenants. They can't be tenants because it's stolen property. So if the property's been stolen, then those are trespassers and not tenants. Right? So what I do find extremely disrespectful is, my understanding is they would know why they're at this door, and they have looked at the information, and they're probably going to choose to ignore it so they can protect the criminals. because the rich in Canada are the only ones who are going to be receiving service and protection. Right? If you're a woman, then you don't have any value in Canada. You don't have any value to the Canadian government if you're a woman in Canada. You mean nothing. You're just something to be used and abused in Canada if you're a woman here. Well, because I'm listening and watching everything, right? And there's nothing more offensive than those males and females pretending to be law enforcement who are running around in those outfits and those vehicles. So again, this assault this afternoon, because that's what it would have to be considered. You know, when you roll up on somebody like me, unannounced like that, and so this is why I had to try to explain, you know, because you know they're watching, right? Like, you know they're watching. They're watching all my social media accounts. He's here to find out what my plans are? Well, what difference does it make what my plans are? Like, you're not here to help. You know, like, I mean, you're really not. You know, because I'm constantly having to set up boundaries. Okay, let's see here. Right, so arrived at the end of June. So I'm a texter. You don't FaceTime and you don't call, you know, because we watch the phone ring. Right, I have Rh negative blood, right? Like, I have to try to explain this to those who might be daft enough to want to deal with me. You know, phone conversation, ring ring, like INFJ. You know, we don't, it's not INFJ, I hope you told me you were coming over, right? You don't ever roll up on a woman this traumatized and this damaged unannounced, because it re-traumatizes me and it puts me right back. If there has been any healing, then it's gone. It's gone. You know, like, this is information. It's imperative information, because you have to know who it is that you're dealing with. Right? What's with the INFJ doormat? Well, that's no doormat. It's a trapdoor surprise for anybody who pushes the wrong button. Right, so if you push that doorbell, well, that would be the wrong button to push if you're at my door. You shouldn't even be at the door to begin with. Did you tell me you were coming here? There was a call this afternoon from a 1-800 number. I'm assuming it was that kind of a situation. INFJ, the first time you realize that others just don't have the same level of existential intelligence as you, that's when you learn to keep your thoughts to yourself. How do you know if an INFJ really likes you? Well, they answer their phone. Vampires don't like sunlight. Superman can't do the kryptonite. And the INFJs, we're not really into the incoming calls, because if we don't know who's calling or why they're calling, you more than likely shouldn't be calling, because you're disturbing our peace. You know, I don't have an obligation to make sense to the world. I really don't. However, I'm now finding myself in a situation that is beyond unconscionable. Like, this is a beyond unconscionable situation I find myself in now. Because this is not rocket science to undo this. You know, if I had my automobile stolen and I knew where the automobile was and who had stolen my automobile, you know, I would go down to the sheriff's and I would say, yes, this is my property, it's been stolen. You and I are going to attend the location of the stolen property, and the stolen property is going to be returned to me immediately. And it doesn't matter what the criminal is about to lose. It doesn't matter. It's the same thing with the property. It's no different, right? It's no different just because it's a house and a piece of land. It's no different than an automobile or jewelry or anything. that you might possess as property. Right? It's not rocket science. This is not complicated to undo. This is not complicated to rectify. Benjamin Howe and Senator Dennis are in possession of stolen property. Period. End of. So they cannot continue to utilize property obtained by the commission of crime. Nobody can. I don't care who you are. So here in Canada, right, if they have rendered you destitute, well, there would be no reason to respect you, right? Because you don't have anything to respect in their eyes. Because only those with hordes and hordes and hordes of money, which is a lie, are going to be respected in Canada. Right, and I didn't lie to that individual at the door. Every single time I have gone and I have reported crime against myself, I have been violently, viciously attacked. I have been refused service, and the criminal then gets away with the crime. Yes, I've written all this down. I've written it all down. Yeah, I wasn't kidding. I had over $50,000 worth of personal property stolen in 2018. And before it was stolen, I went to the Victoria Police Department. I went right inside and I said, there's a crime in progress. I'd been locked out after an agreement had been made. And now I've been locked out so this criminal can steal over $50,000 worth of my tradeswoman property and just basically hand it over to another criminal who then basically walked into my business and just took it over. Well, nowhere in Canada can you do that because I had the right to remove all the fixtures that I had attached to the walls. And that's what I was planning on doing before I got locked out, so the criminal could steal $50,000 and be aided and abetted in the crime by the members acting as Victoria Police Department. And then again, when I'm falsely arrested and falsely charged, who's at the door? 5 criminals acting as Victoria Police Department who have been lied to by child destruction and family destroying member of the BARF who has set up a trap, right? Because they're going to shut you up one way or another. They need fresh supply. The pedophiles in Canada need fresh supply. So allow me to read this because I have rights. They are inalienable. I reserve all of my rights and I waive none of my rights. So special prosecutor for the king. That would be me. And the king that I am referring to is the king who created me and the king who sent me down from above to be a witness to the wickedness of my generation, which I spoke about yesterday when I did this. Because there is no other king. There cannot be another king. There is only one king. Only one. And I know him. I know him. So I stand on my right as a non-domestic foreign national. Well, I'm a foreigner. Like, I can't be a Canadian citizen because I'm not from this world. I couldn't be a citizen of any nation. I just can't. So because I'm hated by the world, I'm in constant need of service and protection. So pursuant to the Act for the Preservation and Enhancement of Multiculturalism in Canada, which provides to myself equal protection and benefit of the law without discrimination, whereas Canada is a party to the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, Article 5C, my right to take part in the satanic cult posing as the government, as well as in the conduct of public affairs at any level, and to have equal access to public service. Pursuant to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, provides to myself, an identifiable member of the peculiar people, an ethnic and linguistic minority, which is what that people group is. It's an identifiable group. shall not be denied our right to enjoy our own culture or to use our own language. So every public servant, federally and provincially, once they are informed that I am aware of my rights and I'm exercising my rights and I'm waiving none of my rights, I mean, I don't know where you want to go now. Private prosecutions, well, because access to justice is an inalienable right in Canada. All victims of crime have the right to hold the assailant, the criminal, to account. Eye for eye, tooth for tooth. It's just really that simple. Now, evildoers don't understand what's right. But people of truth, we do. Right? And again, as I'm out the door there, I'm having to ask this individual, like, do you ever read Scripture? I didn't ask him if he read the Bible. Pay attention to the words that I use because I'm intentional with the words that I use. As much as I can be, I try to be absolutely intentional with the language that I'm speaking and the words that I'm using because it matters. Everything matters, and I know that, right? Knowledge, wisdom, understanding. So children of the devil, they don't understand what's right. But those who seek after the truth, well, we are the ones who do understand, and that's prophesied in Isaiah, Daniel, John, and Jude. And in Proverbs, right? So you've got multiple witnesses to the truth, of the truth. Multiple. Because Isaiah's not Daniel, and Daniel's not John, and John's not Jude. So why are they all saying the same thing? Because it's the truth, right? What's a forensic investigation? What is that? Because you might have heard me talk about that. Well, a forensic investigation is an investigation that involves some form of scientific method or other skill, such as accounting or valuation expertise, and looks retrospectively to make a determination about something that happened in the past. Right, so forced adoption and the theft of private interest property to facilitate money laundering. Right, those are acts of genocide. And they have to be investigated. And those responsible for those acts of genocide then have to be held accountable. Because this is why white-collar crime is out of control in Canada. Right? This is why. Forced adoption. It's legally defined as genocide because they actually know the damage it causes. They, being the BARF members and the community at large, they do understand because they've studied it. And when you go into the living law, the punishment for the crime of kidnapping and selling your neighbor is death. And now why would that be death? Why would the punishment for that crime be death? Because you've committed a murder. You've committed a murder. You have murdered the one you stole and the one you sold, and then you've murdered whoever you kidnapped from. That's what you've done. You've committed a murder. You're a murderer. And you must be purged because you're a contaminant. You're toxic. You've got no hope and no future. And you've proven who you are, right? Like you've proven that you have no respect for law. And if you have no respect for law, then you have no respect for life. And they don't. And like I explained before, they had absolutely no case on me at all. So are we all aware that January the 10th is Peculiar People Day? Is that a coincidence? No, it isn't a coincidence at all. So I filed claim for the 2 acts of genocide. I had filed claim before they actually finished their fraud on the court petition, the bank, CIBC. I had filed claim to stop them. I'd filed, it's a claim, right? Basically a complaint. So first forced adoption, and now you're doing it again. You're doing it again, really. So this is from the fall of 2022. 1 billion class action lawsuit against Manitoba government and Attorney General of Canada. Now, so what, I'm lying? Well, because not only have they continued to do what they did to me, a dozen years ago, it's gotten worse because nobody's doing anything about it. And all those who are responsible for all these acts of genocide and the destruction of biological families, they're just skating off into the sunset. They're just all above the law. So my son was kidnapped in March of 2009, and then he was sold in 2012. So that's between April 1st, 1991 and March 31st, 2022. And yet when I filed claim for compensation to what they had done to me and my family, I was told that I am vexatious, that I am frivolous, that I am without merit, and I am scandalous for even thinking about telling the truth and thinking about accessing my right to justice for myself and my family. That's what I was told. Yet just an out-and-out fucking lie. By the liars who pretend to be the court in Canada. So $20 billion is now going to be distributed amongst all those individuals, all those persons, and yet I'm once again left with less than nothing, and not enough to live on, and not enough to get by on. And so, I'm quite clearly being gang-stalked to death. Right? There's an active agenda to murder me. That's why there's 2 at the door this afternoon again, right? They're here to serve the criminals. They're here to serve criminals Benjamin Howe and Sandra Dennis and the trespassers. That's who they're here to serve and protect this afternoon. Because there have been thousands of emails that have gone out. There have been faxes. When I have a little bit of extra financial resources, faxes go out so I can solve the problem. Because I'm the only one who's going to be solving this one. Like, nobody in this community is going to lift a finger to do anything to help me. Nobody cares about me. Nobody cares about my feelings. Nobody cares about what I have to say. Nobody cares about what's been done to me. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. To the Canadian government, I have no value. I mean nothing to them. So everything I worked all my life to have, it can just be stolen and I'll be left with nothing. And they're more than happy to let that go down. And every day that it happens, and there's no justice, my health deteriorates every day. Because nobody cares about what's happening to me. Nobody cares about what's been done to me. Least of all these fucking ass savages acting as BC attorney generals, who are all literally compulsive liars. Every single one of them is a compulsive liar. They are constantly acquitting the guilty. Constantly. Yeah. Twitter. So a couple hours ago, I was on Twitter, did a post, because despite the fact that I'm not feeling well at all, so not feeling well today at all, the stress is, well, stress is a murderer, right? And that's the whole point of not. So yesterday, so there's David Eby, that's a criminal. So there's Chief Duthie. Well, we all know who that is, don't we? Yeah, the head hog of the criminal organization, Saanich PD. Well, Mike Farnworth pretends to be the Solicitor General and Public Safety Minister. He could care less about my safety or my health or my welfare. Nikki Sharma, we know who that is. Shannon Salt, we know who that is. So Brock Martland. Brock Martland likes to acquit guilty rapists in the province. Don't you, Brock? BC prosecution. Only no breach of trust and evil doing. Let's see here. What do we have here? So understanding inheritance theft laws. People who commit inheritance theft, whether it's an executor, trustee, beneficiary, or someone else, may be subject to both criminal and civil proceedings. No, not maybe, are going to be. All right, these are Canadian BARF members. This is stuff that they post on their websites. Inheritance hijacking occurs when one or more criminals steal an inheritance intended to be left to someone else. Well, that's exactly what CIBC and literally dozens of BARF members have done to me in order to end my life. How do I recover my stolen inheritance in Canada? Oh, this is from Saanich Law. I owned a barbershop in Saanich for close to 7 years. Literally within spitting distance of where this firm has moved to. They moved into the CIBC building in Saanich. After you've contested the will, the next step is to file a lawsuit against the individual you believe fraudulently obtained your inheritance. Well, who fraudulently obtained the inheritance? Well, it's the criminals acting as the BC Supreme Court. They lied about everything. And in order for CIBC criminals to steal $100,000 they weren't owed, criminal David Masuhara had to embezzle the entire $680,000 so his BARF member, buddy, and partner in genocide crime, Daniel Carroll, could help itself to $100,000 that it's not owed. So $40,000 on a credit line it wasn't owed, and then the closing costs of the property that they're stealing, they then stole as well. So that's close to $100,000 they stole. Who cares? Not the persons acting as police, that's for fucking sure. I, a woman, was forced into prostitution against my will, conscience, and culture after my interest private property was stolen by application and title fraud, the inheritance embezzled to force me into homelessness and extreme poverty. By beasts of Belial, racist reprobates unfit for public service acting as CIBC, Fulton and Company, Cox, Taylor, Supreme Court of British Columbia, Victoria Registrar, BC NDP, District of Saanich, Saanich Police, and Province of British Columbia to be raped and infected repeatedly. One rapist vandalized my automobile. In BC every year, there's 60,000 physical and sexual assaults. Okay, so why would that be? Well, that's because all the persons acting as public service here in BC don't care. And all of those rapists never get charged with assault. Isn't that right, Brock Martland? Because the attorney generals are constantly acquitting guilty rapists in the province here. So what's the message to women? Because I'm not a female, I'm a woman. There's a difference. If you knew the truth, you would know the difference. So this is a quote from individuals who are posing as the court, Ontario Court of Appeal. The court is not a self-created body with original powers. It is not a benevolent autocrat with full powers to act as it should think fit. The court is an institution organized by the people, well, they're not people, through their representatives for the purpose of giving to those who apply to it their rights according to law, the law not being made by the court but laid down for it by authority. The court has no right to give a decision in accord with its own views of equity and good conscience as distinct from the rules laid down for it. The court has no right to take power unto itself which is not conferred by the people. Well, it does it all the time, though. And those individuals, those persons acting as the court, don't get to have an opinion on law and justice. It sits right there in the witness box in front of their face. And if they're not following it, then they're a witch. It's literally that simple, guys. Because they don't know what they're talking about and they don't know what they're doing. So it's inheritance theft, right? Like, that's what they've done to me. Criminal Code of Canada. In this act, testamentary instruments includes a will, codicil or other testamentary writing or appointment during the life of the testor, which is a grantor, whose testamentary deposition it purports to be, and after their passing, whether it relates to real or personal property or to both. Well, right. That's right. Exactly. So, reference to the definition of the term testamentary instrument at Section 2 is required pursuant to Sections 334, theft, 340, destroying title documents, 355, possession of property obtained by crime, and 380, fraud. Each of those crimes can be committed with specific reference to the theft, possession, or fraud relating to a testamentary instrument. Okay, so that's exactly what has happened to me. Daniel Carroll and his partners in crime, including those acting as the BC Supreme Court, including those acting as law enforcement. Daniel Carroll is guilty of identity theft. Daniel Carroll took over my identity as executor and trustee of my spouse's testamentary trust. He took it over. He flipped the house into criminal organization CIBC's name, which you can't do, so they could steal everything. So there was theft. There was, well, you're destroying title documents because what you've done is you've put a petition into the court to destroy the title document on the land, which should not be changed ever unless I decide it's changed, which is exactly what the trust says. So then what you've got is you've got CIBC in possession of property obtained by the crime of title fraud and application fraud committed by Fulton and Company criminals, BARF members, which is fraud. That's exactly what they've done. So this will now be happening in Canada all the time to widows, to vulnerable people. I'm a people, okay? I'm not a person. I'm not, no thanks. I'm not a thing. I'm a woman. So this is why this is included in the tweet, right? I'm educating the public. And so that's exactly what they've done to me. Right? So here we are over here on, because I'm communicating with them all the time, and then they play stupid, like they don't know what I'm talking about. And so that was the notice of understanding and intent and claim of right that I provided to them. But like, you have to correct your status. I am woman. Like, Canada's a common law jurisdiction. Right? Like, what are you doing here? Like, no. Like, what is going on? And so I have to explain to them that I'm not acting in the role of an artificial person, like I'm not your property. I'm not a citizen of Canada. No, I'm afraid I'm not, and I can prove it to you all day long and twice on Sunday, if you want to really get into it. And a liar's not going to want to get into it. They don't want to hear the truth. They get really uncomfortable. They start to squirm like a worm. Liars who get around someone who's telling the truth start to squirm like a worm. I've seen them do it. I've felt them do it. Right? Like, I'm trying to explain, like, what are you doing? Like, Canada's communist. So you can expect to be robbed of your house, your inheritance. You're going to be left homeless and destitute. And the CIBC bankers and the BARF members are above the law. So, like, what are you going to do? Like, I don't know how many times I need to go through the same thing. You know, because here's a deposition here that I've written. And these are a lot of work to create. I just need you to know that. Like, these are extremely difficult to create. They're very painful for me to create because I have to relive what's going on. Like, I don't want to have to keep reliving this because it's literally like ripping the scab off the wound. So there can never be any healing because you're constantly having to go back to it. And so the reason why I asked the individual at the door this afternoon if they ever read scripture is because if you don't, we're not going to be able to communicate. Like, I can't, you're going to have no level of understanding to know where I'm coming from, because that's my native language. Jeremiah 9:5, evildoers deceive their neighbors and they don't speak the truth. They've taught their tongues to speak lies. Well, who are they? Who are they? You know, they worry themselves in committing wrongdoing. I got an entire community all doing the wrong thing. And I have spoken to numbers of them who I tell what's happening, they don't care. The social workers at BC Welfare, how many of them know what's happened to me and how many of them care? None of them. Not really. Like on a surface level, every once in a blue moon, you know, get checked on. But basically, like, Micah 2:2. There it is, guys. Like, I don't understand why nobody can understand what I'm saying. Like, then you, the guilty, want a piece of land, you just find a way to steal it, right? When you want someone's house, you witches just take it by fraud and violence. You don't believe that it was absolutely an atrocious act of violence on March the 19th, 2020, during a ban on forced evictions? I'm being forced evicted for my interest private property, left with less than nothing. The two BC sheriffs, the two criminals acting as BC sheriffs that day, one of them was an alcoholic, completely useless, and the other one was a I don't know, a little Asian. A little arrogant Asian. Who could have cared less that I had nowhere to go. Could care less that, you know, I was about to be put in an absolutely unconscionable position where I'm in fear for my life all the time. You compulsive liars cheat a woman from her property, stealing her family's inheritance. Well, that's prophecy. So if that's been prophesied thousands of years before I've arrived here, and thousands of years before I'm then experiencing that hate crime and that act of genocide, how is it that I'm the liar? Like, I don't, like, but I'm constantly being told that I'm the liar, that I'm the bad one, I'm the criminal. I don't know what I'm talking about. What are you talking about? There it is in Mark 12:40. They guilty, arrogant abominations, named and shamed, in this deposition devour widows' houses, and they say long prayers. Well, so I went in to the horror house repeatedly, and I'm telling the truth, and I'm providing the court direction. I'm providing court orders that I've already written up before I've gone in there, just like I'm supposed to be doing. I know what I'm doing. I do thousands of hours of research before I do anything. And it just doesn't matter, right? Like, there's hours and hours of liars telling their lies, and then when it's my turn, well, no, we're not going to listen to you because who are you? Like, you're nobody to us. You're nobody to us. We could care less about your health, welfare, or your safety, or your rights. You don't have any rights in here. We can't hear you. Pure evil Masonic BC Supreme Court mocking rituals disguised as hearings to cover it up. These witches will receive greater condemnation. Right, so forced adoption is fraud on the court, stealing the widow's house, stealing all the money, fraud on the court. Right, and then the world is providing all this information all of the time of what's going on in Canada, but once again, right, apparently I'm the liar. So comfortlife.ca is reporting that twice a week in Canada, a mortgage-free home is being stolen from the vulnerable. And what you're going to notice about Canada is there's no mention ever of the victim. There's no mention of how the victim gets remedy. There's no mention of how the victim gets relief. There's no mention of the victim ever receiving any type of justice or even service or even protection. Right, because it's the bankers and the BARF members and the politicians and the criminals here in British Columbia that are being protected by law enforcement. Right? Like, that's, well, I've taped some of them. So again, right, you've got prophecy here. You've got Isaiah and Micah talking about, well, they're describing the children of the devil and how they live their lives, right? So Financial Post is talking about money laundering. Well, who's doing it? Well, it's your BARF members and your real estate maggots. But then again, right, but I'm the liar. Yeah, of course I am. Yeah, that's who I am, guys. I'm the liar. I'm the liar. Real estate agents, leeches. How do criminals launder money through real estate transactions? Because maybe not everybody in society understands how these crimes take place, right? So that's why my father has had this crime committed against me, because my father knows I'm going to be the woman to jump down that rabbit hole so that I can explain it to you, members of society, who need to be concerned about what's happening to your neighbor, because that's what righteous men and women, that's how they live their lives. So, like, how do these crimes happen? Well, it's the age of information, so the information is everywhere if you're interested in the truth. 3 types of real estate fraud to be on the lookout for. Well, this is all Canadian information, right? Money laundering and real estate transactions. Well, it's a real problem in Canada, and it's a very serious issue here in British Columbia. And so then what you've got the media setting up. Well, the media is telling lies, right? These reporters are telling lies. There's no racism going on against Asians here in British Columbia. Some of us British Columbians can see what's happening, and we can see what's coming, so we're the ones concerned, right? Because certain cultures worship certain demons. You know, every nation, every culture has idols that they worship. All of them do. So again, right, there's all this information here that I have gone to the time, painstaking effort to go through the flow of money from China to British Columbia, right? Property sales sparks money laundering affairs. Well, that's why all the houses, you can't afford them. Vancouver and Victoria became a byword for money laundering fueled by Chinese cash. Vast scale of money laundering in British Columbia. You know, BC lawyer facing money laundering charges. But the liars who did this to me, well, no, right? Because they did it to me, so nobody cares about me. Nobody. Literally nobody gives a flying fuck about what's been done to me. The theft of an untouchable interest private property to facilitate money laundering. So attorney generals, they knew. I sent them packages. There was no response. They could have cared less. What they do is they just send their flying monkeys. They send their flying monkeys to attack and assault me and to bully and intimidate. Right? I don't have a story to tell. I'm sorry. I mean, when you talk to me like that, it really hurts me, because a story constitutes a lie, right? That's why it's a story. I don't have a story. I have testimony. I don't have evidence. I have proof. Like, you're not arguing with proof. You can argue evidence, but you can't argue with proof. So I go through the whole thing. Like, it's so simple to see if you have eyes that see. You know, so why are the first 2 Asians putting the house up for sale a year to the day, since their quote-unquote purchase date? I have miscalculated after going over and thinking quietly and just assessing the situation again. So if they purchased the property for $680,000, they actually put close to $200,000 into the property. between the perimeter drain upgrade, between what they did on the inside and what they did on the outside. They would have invested probably $200,000 into the house, bringing their investment to close to $900,000, which is why then they're listing, sorry, it wasn't $850, they listed the stolen property for $860. They listed the stolen property for $860, and within less than 2 weeks, Greer Jacks of Crease Harmon is filing into the Victoria Land Title Office the land title. So Benjamin Howe and Sandra Dennis have offered $749,000 to the first two Asians who are into that property for $860. At least. So that doesn't make any sense, because then the first two Asians are losing money. Nobody gets into BC real estate when the market's hot to lose money. And if you're flipping a property because it's a fraudulent foreclosure, so you think you're getting into the property for nothing, they've just laundered $750,000. That's why they're in and out in a year. And now, listen, Benjamin Howe and Sandra Dennis obviously know the first two Asians. Because why would the first two Asians take a lowball offer? And now what you've got is Benjamin Howe and Sandra Dennis using that stolen property obtained by crime, to make passive income. They're renting out the top and the bottom of my home, which you can't do. It's like me stealing somebody's vehicle and then using it to make myself money. It's no different than that. Right? And so then, I've gone to the property and informed, I had to do a land title search. I mean, I had to try to figure out, as damaged as I am, not functioning at the capacity I should be functioning at, and because of all the hate and all the fraud, all the no compassion, all the no empathy. Do you know what I mean? Like it's and everybody who knows could care less. Here's Kirsten Martin here. She was the listing agent when the first two Asians needed to pass off the stolen property to launder the $750,000. So again, I'm saying, well, then they need to give back the property because it's stolen. Like, this doesn't require a court order. It doesn't require, fucking sing-song and fucking dancing around, and it's stolen property, and it's got to be returned, like, to the owner. It's trust property. You can't keep using the trust property. So this is the disrespect I'm getting from Kirsten Martin. All I did was my job, and I have no stake in your claim. I have no ability to give you your house back? I feel for you, but I cannot help you. Do not message me again. Really? No, actually, Miss Martin, at the time that the first two Asians listed the house, you had already taken a course on money laundering through real estate. So you, if you were actually paying attention, it should have jogged something in you that, hold on here, how have these Asians gotten into this house, and now a year to the day later they're passing it off? And they're taking a lowball offer when they've listed for $860? What's going on here? Because it stinks. It stinks. The whole thing, Kirsten, it stinks. And you've already taken the course on money laundering? You didn't think to do your due diligence, Kirsten? And ask what's going on here? No, because Kirsten doesn't care about anything other than the mammon. Right, and here's Greer Jacks. No, I called that thing up and I'm like, We have a problem. And we all heard the call. The call's still up on BitChute. The call to Greer Jacks is still up on BitChute. And Greer Jacks informs me that it has called a liar at the Lawless Society of British Columbia, and that the witch has informed Greer Jacks that I'm a liar, and that I file fraudulent claims in the court. No, I don't. I have never done that, nor would I ever do that. So the witch, acting as a Lawless Society BC, then informs Greer Jack to just completely ignore me, which is the crime of fraud. The crime of fraud. It's also the crime of basically obstruction of justice. So when you know about a crime, if you don't do anything about that crime and you have the ability to do something about that crime, you become just as guilty as those who committed the crime. So Greer Jacks is guilty of genocide, as is Kirsten Martin, as is now Benjamin Howe and Sandra Dennis, because now for the last 19 months, everybody knows. It's not like I'm not saying something. It's not like I'm being silent. No one's going to help me with this. I'm on my own. Me and the one who sent me here. Because I'm so brokenhearted, he never leaves me. You don't think I'm brokenhearted? Come on. Have you listened to what's been done to me? And here's the thing. I haven't even gone into my childhood yet. I haven't even explained that fucking hell I went through. I'll get to that later. Right, so I looked at the photos of the listing. And what I saw was my stolen personal chattel being utilized by the first two Asians to stage that stolen property so they can pass it off to their buddies. Yeah, that's what went down. And see if the passing off price is $749. Why is the declared value of the property $860? Because then that drives up the prices of houses in the district of Sandwich and makes it harder for individuals or anybody looking to get into property if that's what they want to do. It makes it near to impossible. So here in Canada, only the rich have the right to have the security of land and a fixture. That's the message that's being sent. Right, so the other day you heard me talk about sending a fax to Jackie Seabloom. Well, how do I know who Jackie Seabloom is? Well, how did I get the card? Well, I went into Scotiabank at the end of June 2022 and I explained to Jackie, you've got a fraudulent mortgage on your books, Jackie. We've had a property theft. We've had an inheritance theft go down and it included interest private property. And so then again, right, I've got doctorate links, document. I mean, you can't hit them there and get to the document, but if you punch it into a search engine and hit enter, the addresses aren't very long, you would find out the same satanic cults that crucified Jesus, they're after me. Well, of course they are. Right, they don't want me here. I get it. You know, and then we have to talk about racketeering. Then we have to talk about money laundering, right? Your courts and banks are money laundering. They're the ones who are doing all the money laundering. That's why they're fucking barking and bitching about money laundering. So they need to get your eyes off of them doing the money laundering and make you somehow convinced that it's somebody else doing it. They're the ones doing it. All the BARF members and criminals acting as the courts are the ones doing the money laundering, and as are the bankers. Mortgage fraud. Well, that's what's happening here, right? You've got 2 fraudulent mortgages on that stolen property. You got the first two Asians with a fraudulent mortgage that allowed them to launder $750,000, and now you've got another 2. Listen, surname Howe, that's more than likely an Asian. 3-letter last name, 3-letter surname, that's usually Asian. Now, am I racist? No. Do I hate Asians? No. No, but I am noticing that there's a certain group in British Columbia here involved in organized crime. Money laundering through the BC casinos and the BC real estate industry, and that's all coming from other sources. But I'm a source of that information because I'm a victim of this shit. So this has already been taken care of, right? In April 2009. And this is what shits me about this. You mean somebody went to court and said I've had my property stolen, and the fucking court went, oh yeah, no you didn't. So then that individual has had to be fucking jerked around and jerked off some more, and has to go and file with the BC Court of Appeal? Are you fucking joking? See, because they wanted this individual, this victim of the crime, to give up. That's why they did that. And you have to understand, this is all about billable hours for these liars, eh? These barf members, it's all about billable fucking hours so that they can keep the fucking war going on for as long as humanly fucking possible. They fucking get rich while you get fucking poor, and you're never going to get justice out of any of those fucking barf members. They don't have a fucking clue what justice is. So this is a precedent-setting case. Unless the mortgage is granted by the true owner, the mortgage is invalid, and the owner's title has to be returned to the original state. Yeah, it ain't rocket science. The way the land title sat when my spouse created the trust, it has to be returned to that state. Because the true owner did not sell that home. No, they didn't. And of course, we've got CIBC. It has a history of criminal activity. CIBC is a criminal organization. Period. That's the truth. No one's getting around that truth. They are absolutely vile. Vile. All of the bankers I spoke to at CIBC when they started to steal the house, every single one of them is a compulsive liar. You realize that gaslighting a woman telling the truth is satanic ritually abusing her, right? So what are they doing here? Oh, this Cullen inquiry is just a joke. Isn't that right, Brock Martland? Public commission into money laundering. No. Yeah, no. So CIBC Bank supports clients who break laws to buy houses in BC here. Well, that's what they did with my property, right? Because the property had no mortgage on it. They can't stand that. They can't have that. They're not making all that racketeering income in interest. Interest is a form of racketeering. Interest is a form of theft. Right? And so because my property was mortgage-free, they had to steal it from me because they want mortgages on that property. So you've got bank managers from CIBC with a history of stealing from seniors and deceased customers. Well, that's what they've done to me. They just completely fucking shit all over my spouse's excellent character. Completely fucking defamed his good character. It's now a public record. My spouse is a deadbeat that doesn't pay his bills when he went bankrupt on his house. That's an out-and-out fucking lie. Defamation of character is a form of murder. Slander is also a form of murder. So you've got a CIBC skank stealing millions. And why not, right? But what you'll notice here about me, for my situation, there's not one law enforcement officer right now doing an investigation into any of these outrageous criminal acts by any of these CIBC criminals and their solicitors. No. No investigation. Nobody cares. And here it is. Here it is. Here is the lie that started the war. September 2018. Remember I told you this has been going on for the last 5 years? Here it is. This is the first fucking bullshit letter. Filled with nothing but fucking fraud and nothing but lies. I don't have a loan. Your loan? I don't have a loan. None of the beneficiaries have a loan with you. You have no claim. You have no interest in that land. None. You were caused no loss. You were caused no harm, and you were caused no injury. You don't have a claim on that land. You don't have a claim on the inheritance. You don't have a claim to that trust fund at all. So what we have here is yours very truly is a compulsive liar and a genocide guilty child of the devil. That's who that is. I'm not going to hide what you are for you. I'm not going to fucking put a mask on you and call you something that you're not. I can see behind that mask you wear, Daniel Carroll. You see, at the end of January 2020, when I went toe-to-toe with this compulsive lying puke Daniel Carroll would have never understood why I literally got close enough to smell this thing's breath, and it smelled like shit. Not only did Daniel Carroll not even fucking have a shower the morning, he was flown in to Victoria. Yeah, they flew him in to fucking rape me of my inheritance, to commit an act of fucking fraud on the court. They flew him in. And I got nice and close. Needed to get a whiff. Smelled like death. And the fucking 2 hours of lies. I fucking had to stand there and listen to 2 hours worth of fucking lying. And I'm the only one in the room telling the truth. Yep, they clear out the courtroom for me. When they're going to commit an act of genocide, they clear out the courtroom. Yep. So, certificate of pending litigation, right? This is coming from the Victoria Land Title Office. Right, Victoria Land Title Office. So this is application and title fraud, right? You have to understand this. This is what Graham Mack has just committed. Graham Mack has just committed an act of application and title fraud, as has Daniel Carroll. Both of their names are on this instrument to commit genocide. And then you've got CIBC down here, who now claims it's the owner of that property. So they can steal it. So title fraud are still rare in BC, but on the rise, possibly due to soaring real estate prices. So as real estate prices increase, so does the size of the mortgages potentially exploited by fraudsters. So if you're going to need to launder money, you're going to need a BC casino or a fraudulent foreclosure. That's what you're going to need. And those opportunities are everywhere in British Columbia here, because there's criminals pretending to be real estate agents and BARF members and bankers and the court. So that's what they've done. Right? All to facilitate money laundering. And I told you they have faces. I told you this. Right? So this is money laundering legislation. So what Daniel Carroll has actually done is committed the offense of breach of trust, and he's committed fraud, and he's committed the money laundering himself because it's the one who gave the opportunity for that money to even be laundered in the first place, because the property should have never been put up for sale. And not once did they receive my consent, because I never did consent, because I would never consent to an act of fraud on the court. So then again, we've got, so you're supposed to be then going to prison. You're supposed to go to prison. We're talking prison and fine. Prison and fine for what you've done. The principal money laundering offense is created by the Proceeds of Crime Act. Concealing the offense, well, there are dozens of criminals who are guilty of concealing the offense. And many of them pretend to be the BC Supreme Court. Isn't that right, David Mastrahara? Isn't that right, Jennifer Power? Isn't that right, Johnston? Eh? You like to cover up acts of genocide? The arranging offense, well, again, the acquisition, use, and possession offense. Boom. Well, what's hard to understand about that? Like, it's all written down for everybody. Canada's banks are privately owned. So criminals posing as the province of BC, Provincial Court of BC, members of the Lawless Society of BC, BC Attorney General, CIBC, the RCMP, provincial police, are racketeer-influenced and corrupt organizations. That's where they get the term RICO from. When you hear somebody say RICO, they were referring to racketeer-influenced and corrupt organizations. And this is what they get down. This is how they get down. Now remember, I'm the woman of a forced adopted son. All forced adoptions are the act of fraud upon the court. All forced adoptions are the act of genocide. And now they're coming for widows' homes. All of it to facilitate money laundering and racketeering. Right? That's what's going on right now with Benjamin Hanna and Sandra Dennis. They're guilty of racketeering. They're collecting passive income on stolen property. And that's the same with Scotiabank. Scotiabank is collecting income that's being provided to them by the committal of offenses, criminal offenses. And that's never going to change. Like, that's the same every single day, and it has been since September of 2018, when they committed application and title fraud to steal that property. Okay, so murder, kidnapping, and extortion. Okay, so when they steal your biological real property, there's a murder taking place. Obviously, there's a kidnapping that's taking place. And then they're going to try to extort you for money to regain possession of your property. So robbery, bribery, dealing in obscene matter. Well, all frauds on the court, all acts of fraud on the court is an obscene matter. That's dealing in an obscene matter. So Daniel Carroll tried to bribe me for $40,000 I didn't owe. And if I didn't pay the bribe, if I didn't let them steal the $40,000 from me, they just moved in and stole everything, including most of the personal chattel. So that's theft, that's embezzlement, that's fraud, that's obstruction of justice, because I kept telling them no. I've been forced into prostitution. Actually, I'm listed as a slave. My all-capital name, that's a slave trade name. That's owned, but, well, all roads lead to Rome. All roads lead to Rome. You know, so you've got the Catholic Church, and you've got the Crown, that are hoof and hoof, and they have turned the sovereigns into slaves. They've turned the sovereigns into subjects. That's what your all-capital name is. It's a commercial transmitting utility, because these fucking savages worship one thing and one thing only, and that's mammon. Right? Money. The only thing they care about is money. Money laundering. Well, it's the commission of murder for hire. Right? Like Daniel Carroll, when he's going and contacting all these real estate agents to get involved in this act of genocide, that's the commission of murder for hire. Because a murder's taking place. They're murdering me with their lies. Embezzlement. Well, yeah, fuck, you stole it all. And now you're trying to bribe me. You're trying to extort me to file a probate that I can't file, because there's nothing to probate. Everything's been stolen. It's a securities fraud, right? It's an act of terrorism. That's what they've done here. That's RICO. That's what racketeering, influenced, and corrupt organizations do. So who did I just describe to you? I just described to you persons acting as the federal government. I just described to you persons acting as the provincial government. I just described to you persons acting as bankers and the court. And what happens to the victim of crime? Nobody cares. Fraud over $5,000 involving a will, an estate, or a testamentary trust. 14 years in prison. 14 years in prison. I don't need to hire a BARF member. I do my own work. They're not intelligent enough to do what I do. They're too lazy to do what I do. So I have to do all of this. And I don't just do this for me. I do it for all the victims of crime in Canada, because I'm an advocate for victims of crime. Like, that's what I do. That's why I tell the truth. So you can be comforted by what I know. So you can be comforted by my understanding. So you can be comforted by my wisdom. Right? That's how you love your neighbor like you love yourself. That's what that looks like. I care about you. I care about what's happening to you. I care if somebody's harming you. Of course I do. I'm a righteous woman. That's what we do. Invasion of privacy. Well, I don't know how much of that conversation got caught. When the mail was at the door this afternoon, I tried to explain to that individual that nobody has the right to privacy in Canada, because you don't. All that privacy bullshit talk is just smoke and mirrors. Nobody has privacy in Canada. You have no privacy. None. The beast knows everything about everybody. And it's about to get way worse, right? Because now they want to introduce the digital currency, where every single cent and transaction is tracked. No more anonymity at all. But that's what was happening, right? When they kept showing the property that had been stolen from me, that's an invasion of my privacy. And so November 17th, 2019, this is before the showings are beginning, I'm having to let Bradley Walker and JU know, along with a number, well, there's the Attorney General. The person's acting as the Attorney General, you can see them tagged in this email, and so they're fully aware of what's happening. And they don't care, which means that they are aiding and abetting an act of genocide. They are aiding and abetting an act of fraud on the court. And they all know what's happening. So Bradley Walker and Jay Yoon had to let every single real estate agent know who was going to show that property, that property was up for sale because it was being pushed through. There was a fraudulent foreclosure happening. There was fraud on the court happening. And that's how it even got up for sale. And he had a professional obligation, duty, and responsibility to inform every single real estate agent, including any buyer, that that's what was happening. So if he didn't do that, and I know he didn't do that, Bradley Walker is guilty of genocide. And Bradley Walker, so the punishment for genocide is imprisonment for life. Legally. Lawfully, it's death. Lawfully, you have to be put to death. And I'm an expert in living law. So Bradley Walker, you joined yourself knowingly and willingly to the living law. It's called joinder. You can get one of your fucking liars to explain that to you, that term, joinder. You joined yourself to the living law. And the living law is going to be administered to you for what you've done, because you willingly and knowingly committed a hate crime against me. And you were more than happy to do it. Even hand delivering me the terroristic threat and letter I've received from Daniel Carroll after you and your pals completed your act of fraud upon the court. Right, so here's a text message while this whole thing is going down, and here we can see the purchase date of the first two Asians is November the 28th, 2019. 1 year to the day, those two Asians are putting that property up. They're passing it off. They're illegally passing off that stolen property to their two pals. I was not informed of this, by the way. And after that date, so they were the first, so November 28th, so this text message was sent on November 26th. The first two Asians, those were the first two to go through the house. They purchased the house that day, and I was not informed of that at all. And then they kept showing the property to torture me, to terrorize me, to gang stalk, to satanic ritually abuse me. They kept showing that property. And they know it's already been illegally passed off to two Asians who need to launder some money. Did anybody ask me if that should be the sale price? No. So Daniel Carroll has just completely taken over my identity. That's identity theft. Daniel Carroll's guilty of identity theft. There they are. I told you they have faces. I told you that. Right? Invasion of privacy. Yeah, oh, they knew. Well, they don't care. You know, so as this is all happening, I'm informing all of the relevant agencies and their agents that there's a crime being committed. There's a crime being committed. And now the Lawless Society of British Columbia has this absolute laughable fucking garbage on their website that they're anti-money laundering. Bullshit. Bullshit. Those pukes are behind all the money laundering crime in the province of British Columbia, and they are covering up for money laundering. They're covering up for money laundering criminals, and I can take you into a case and I can prove that to you, which I still might do if I don't get too tired here. So this is the letter that I get at the end of December 2019 after I inform the criminals acting as the Law Society of BC that Daniel Carroll is committing an act of fraud upon the court. And if you read this letter, I'm being gaslit. I'm being satanically ritually abused. I'm being told I'm a liar. And I'm being told that Daniel Carroll is got every right to file a fraud on the court petition, because that's what the courts in Canada are used here for. They're for committing acts of genocide against my people. Hate crimes. Just absolutely atrocious fucking acts of hate. And we can see that I'm screaming from the fucking rooftops here because it says here, here's the thing. No male or female fucking monkey signed their name to this letter. They never signed their name to this letter. No criminal covering up for Daniel Carroll signed their name to this letter. Because they know. That's why they don't sign their name. So let's read this, because it's the stupidest fucking shit I've ever heard of in my life. Well, it's your typical average everyday fucking liar. Right? This is their lane of language. This is their level of fucking monkey mind thinking. I write further. Well, who the fuck is I? Who the fuck are you? Who the fuck are you? I write further to my letter. Again, who the fuck are you? Dated December 4th, and acknowledge receipt of your further correspondence. On the 8th, on the 11th, on the 12th, and on the 18th, I am saying something. I'm saying, hold the fucking phone here. There's something really fucking nasty going on here. And you all have to fucking pay attention. Nope. No one's going to fucking pay attention. I trust that you will have by now had an opportunity to review the brochure, which was enclosed. Oh my fucking God. Okay, so here's the thing. Whoever you are, you have no jurisdiction in this matter. And I'm going to take over jurisdiction of this matter, and I'm going to do to Daniel Carroll what must be done to Daniel Carroll. Daniel Carroll's career and life are over. And that's not a threat. That's a promise. That's a guarantee. Because I'm not dealing with you fucking low life, fucking low level, fucking compulsive lying pukes anymore. Nope. What you've just done there is called breach of trust by public officer. And you fucking Law Society of BC assholes, you fucking claim you have nothing to do with the government, that you're not a government agency. Well, then why the fuck are you inside public service agencies? Why are you inside public service courthouses that are there to serve the public if you're not part of the government? What are you doing inside that agency then? That accommodation? You shouldn't be there. No, you need to set up a Church of Satan. And that's where you BARF members can go and file your fucking fraudulent as fuck petitions to go and murder your neighbors. That's what you need to create for yourselves, you BARF members. I understand that you're involved in an ongoing legal matter of which I'm no, bitch. No, I don't self-represent. I am woman known as Victoria Nevins, and I do not self-represent. I am myself. Thank you. I'm a living woman, and you can't deal with living people. You can only deal in the dead, because you are dead, and kind has to deal with kind. You've raised concerns about the legal position of and steps taken by the opposing party through their liars in the course of this dispute. If you continue to disagree with the steps taken by the opposing party, you may wish to seek legal advice. Oh, fuck, I don't think so. This is exactly what happens every single fucking time you get into these fucking cesspools of Satanists. I heard it when I was in the fucking whorehouse at 850 Burnett Avenue, too. Miss Nevins, that is talk to a lawyer. I don't need to talk. I don't fucking deal with the dead. I don't associate with the dead. I don't associate with children of the devil. No thanks. I'm good. And who the fuck do you think you're talking to? You fucking useless, clueless piece of shit who wrote this letter. Are you the same piece of fucking shit that spoke to Greer Jacks and lied your fucking face off about my character? Answer the question. Which? There's nothing in my correspondence that raises a concern about the conduct of a fucking liar. So we've just closed the file. Because we don't give a flying fuck if Daniel Carroll is committing fraud on the court. We don't care. Fuck you. Fuck you and fuck off. You are going to hell, whoever the fuck you are. And don't worry, fuckface. If you don't want to identify yourself, my father saw what you did and my father recorded what you did. And on Judgment Day, I'll be with the woman standing beside my father as I watch him literally fucking shred you. You fucking lying piece of shit. There's nothing that raises a concern. Puke. Oh, here we have the communist criminals pretending to be BCNDP. I mean, this is all smoke and mirrors. This is all propaganda. All their social media accounts are propaganda. They don't care about what you're saying. They don't care if you respond in a tweet. They're not interested in what you have to say. These are arrogant fucking abominations. These are fucking criminals. These are communist criminals. Look at this shit. Fucking money launderers and fraudsters, watch out. Thanks to this covenant of corruption, the BC Securities Commission now has the strongest enforcement powers in Canada. What the fuck are you talking about? No, they don't. No, they don't. What fucking authority do they have to deal with my matter? Unless they have first-hand knowledge of my matter? Unless they experience my matter? Unless they were the ones who've now become a victim of genocide? They got no fucking authority. None. Of what my job is to do to every single one of these fucking pukes who's done this to me. All so they could fucking get rich and not by right. So I've had to show you that I spent thousands of hours researching to make sure that when I filed my claim, it was taken seriously because these are acts of genocide. Now, I want you to notice the date on this court seal. It's January the 6th, 2020. They are in the process of stealing the property and embezzling the inheritance. They're still in the process of doing this to me, and I need to file this to stop them. What you need to notice, our last names, our surnames are in brackets, meaning they don't show on the paper. They don't show on the claim. This is a claim. This is a claim, and once the claim is filed, the claim has to be paid out according to what I desire for it to be paid out for the damages that have been caused. I have not lied about anybody on this paper, this claim. Everybody listed is guilty. Everybody, every person listed is guilty, as accused. I don't go around telling lies, thank you. So again, right, I'm not using, this is not a legal proceeding. This is a law proceeding. This is a procedure of law. That's why my spouse, myself, and my son are the victims, because that's what we are. And the offenders are those listed. Those are trespassers. Those are assailants. Those are violent vandals listed there. Every single one of them has caused me loss, harm, and injury. Every single one. Not one of them is not, like, they're all guilty. Not one of them is innocent. But I'm a liar. Yeah. So this is, so January the 14th, I need to explain something about this, this Neely. The day before, so the reason why Cook Roberts and criminal Kyle Hamilton is listed on this claim for justice and judgment is because my first sexual experience actually turned out to be a rape. Because when I was 16, I met a male monster named Todd Valancourt. And from December to May, I, at 16 years old, believed that I was in a courtship situation with Todd Valancourt. Todd Valancourt from Kamloops, British Columbia, who works at Highland Valley Copper Mine and has for decades. I was 16, he was 23. And we met at the Aberdeen Mall in Kamloops and started to contact each other, and Todd started to take me out. We went out for Valentine's Day, and he gave me a present and a little bear that said, "I love you," and he took me to Disneyland. I had to have a note from my mom because I was 16 and a virgin. Like, I'm young, right? I'm not, and I believe everyone has the same heart as I do. Like, I'm not really understanding, like, the depravity of humans yet, because I still am thinking, like, people are good. Like, I'm trying to wrap my head around that. So for 6 months, my understanding is that I'm in a courtship with Todd Valancourt. And in the middle of May of 1990, Todd Valancourt made me his wife for life when he engaged in an action to know me, if you understand what I'm talking about. I had no idea Todd Valancourt was dating somebody else. While I thought he was courting me, I had no idea he was making huge life plans with someone else. He never told me. He never told me any of that. He didn't tell me that until after he had made me his wife for life. Not until after he knew me as a virgin. Now, if you understand the Tanakh, and you understand the living law, and you understand the way, truth, and the life, there are certain foundations in the way, the truth, and the life that are laid down for good reason, because sex is sacred. It creates oneness between two. And I mean, I just had no idea that he was off, cheating, basically, right? Like, I'm in a relationship with Todd Valancourt, or at least I thought I was. He never gave me any sign that wasn't what was going on between us. And then he calls me up one day after he has made me his wife for life, after he has known me as a virgin. I'm 16, now I'm almost 17, because this is May 1990. I'm about to turn 17 at the end of June 1990. And he called me up one day and said, "I need to talk to you." So I went to Oak Street in Kamloops. That's where he was renting a house, a little white house by the river, the Thompson River. It was close to the mall. And we're standing in the kitchen. And then he's like, yeah, well, yeah, this is over, eh? Like, I got this Lydia. And we're moving in together and we're going to live happily ever after. So, yeah, like, basically, I'm done with you. Like, this is over. Like, it's done. I died that day. I died that day. And I had no idea the level of damage that had just been done to me. 33 years later, I do understand. So because he didn't share with me information that he had to share with me, because if that information had been shared with me, I would have never allowed him to touch me that way. I would have never engaged in that kind of behavior with him if he had let me know what he was doing. And at this point, when he's making me his wife for life, like, he's in a full-on relationship with her. This Lydia who lived in Vancouver, who he had met when he was there. So what that means is, because I wasn't informed of all the information that I had to be informed of, my first encounter was a rape. Because how can I consent? Like, I'm not even given the opportunity. I don't have all the information. I died that day. So I was in grade 11. I was just finishing up grade 11 when that was all going on. I quit school. I never went to grade 12. And I packed up all my stuff at 17, or the little that I had. And I moved away. I moved out of Kamloops. And Todd has continued to basically torture me for decades. Always and forever, Vic. You're the one that got away, Vic. You're my soulmate, Vic. See, even a male monkey with no understanding has a certain level of understanding. Well, yeah, Todd, you made me your wife for life. You have a fiduciary duty. So in 2020, I sought to hold Todd Valancourt accountable for the rapes, basically destroying my life. And that's exactly what happened, because I'm not permitted to be sexually immoral. I'm just not. It's just not something. We don't live our lives like that. We know better. We know what it does. Sexual immorality. You're literally destroying yourself and everybody else that you're engaging that way with. It's not healthy behavior. So I sought to hold him accountable for causing me loss, harm, and injury. And so what does Todd Valancourt do? He hires a liar named Kyle Hamilton. And there was a hearing on January the 14th, 2020, the day before. Lindsay LeBlanc is about to commit an act of genocide and participate in an act of fraud on the court. So my hearing about seeking justice and compensation from Todd Valancourt for what he did to me, that hearing happened on January the 14th. And guess who was sitting? Guess who was the sitting hell's whore that day in BC Supreme Court? Well, it was Peter Neely. It was Peter Neely. And Peter Neely and his partner in crime, Kyle Hamilton, basically raped me that day in the court. They raped me of my right to access justice. They raped me of my right to access justice, and not only that, then I was ordered to pay the rapist. I was ordered to pay the rapist's liar, and I was not permitted to be at the payment hearing. I was ordered that I wasn't even allowed to be at this payment hearing because Peter Neely is a puke who advocates women being raped in British Columbia, as does Kyle Hamilton. See what I mean? Like, I'm not lying. I wouldn't make it up. I couldn't make it up if I tried. And I went in and I listened to that satanic ritual on January the 14th.
And it was absolutely disgusting the way I was spoken to. Peter Neely actually admitted to not even having read the claim. He didn't even read it, and he wasn't interested. I don't have time for that, he says. I don't have that kind of time. Kyle Hamilton committed a myriad of misrepresentations and fraud on the court with his response. And with that fraud on the court response, I then was raped by all three of them. And I never received compensation. No. I'm now going to pay the rapist, and I'm now going to have to pay the rapist's liar, according to Peter Neely. And now here's Peter Neely the next day, on January the 15th, aiding and abetting an act of fraud on the court to steal interest private property from a widow. And now Lindsay LeBlanc, the compulsive liar, is now bringing to Peter Neely's attention that I have filed the claim to stop what they're doing. Right, so you're not allowed to do that in Canada. You're not allowed to go and seek compensation. If you're a victim of crime in Canada, the court won't allow you to do that. And here is the witch here. This is Peter Neely. This is the witch who raped me January the 14th. And then this witch then rapes me again the next day by aiding and abetting an act of fraud on the court with his banker buddy pals and his barf member buddy pals. Yeah. He's a known criminal, Peter Neely. He's a known criminal. He's got quite a reputation, this puke. Yeah. Okay, so here's some legal documents. So this is BC Real Estate website. This is information from the BC Real Estate website about another instance where property is being stolen from the lawful owner. So the court found that under the Act, a mortgage granted by anyone who obtained their title by fraud or forgery is invalid, and the Act preserves the, well, it's a Latin term meaning no one can give what they do not have. Rule 6 with respect to charges. So even where the mortgagee has relied on the registered title and dealt bona fide with a non-fictitious registered owner, a mortgagee does not acquire any estate or interest in the lands on registration of their mortgages where they have been granted by a person who had no valid interest in the lands, and such mortgages are void. So what happens is every single mortgage that's been granted on that land is null and void. So the first two Asians, and now these next two, your mortgages are void. So what's really going on here? Right? White collar crime. Yeah, so Bradley Walker came and brought this letter to me personally on January the 15th, 2020, to let me know that I'm leaving my stolen property in less than 2 weeks, and they've offered me no financial resources to do so because they actually want to steal all the personal chattel so these two fucking Asians can just inherit everything. So basically, what they've done is they've rewritten my spouse's last will and testament, and they've rewritten it where Daniel Carroll is the trustee, Daniel Carroll is the executor, and the fucking Asians here, these two fucking Asians, are actually the beneficiaries of the entire fucking estate. That's what they've done. That's what this fucking pig has done. This fucking witch. Who's going to be dead before the end of the year? I'll be there to zip up the fucking body bag. Fucking rights I will. I'm not making threats. This is prophecy. I'm making a promise. That puke is finished. Done. Right, because you know the judges, those aren't judges on that bullshit bench. That bench is a bank. And they're communists, and they're coming for everything you are and everything you've worked so hard to have. If they're going to do it to me, they're going to do it to you. You know, Yeah, like, they just don't fucking care. I told you they have faces. This is David Mashahara, guilty of fraud on the court. David Mashahara aided and abetted an act of fraud on the court, fully and completely knowing what was going on and not caring. And this David Mashahara is the one who sat there and said to me, well, we're going to just pay all the money into the court, you know. Because really, we know that you're way more intelligent than we're letting on. And so we know that you won't let Daniel Carroll steal $100,000 from the beneficiaries. And so in order for Daniel Carroll to be granted opportunity to steal $100,000 from the beneficiaries, I have to steal everything from you, Victoria. So then my barf member buddy can steal $100,000. And then the rest of my fucking puke spewing fucking pals pretending to be the court can embezzle the rest. And we're going to leave you with nothing. And unless you pay the extortion amount, unless you file a probate that's not required, unless you file a probate that you can't file because we've stolen everything from you, you'll just die of gross negligence, Victoria, because, Victoria, we hate you. And, Victoria, we know that you know who we all are. And so we've all gotten together, Victoria, in secret meetings to design for you the complete destruction of your life and your good name. Isn't that right, David? Isn't that right, David? David's a racist. Aren't you, David? David's a misogynist. Aren't you, David? David's also a compulsive liar, aren't you, David? Well, David, I've stood within spitting distance of you. I know exactly what you are. I know exactly what you are, David. Oh, and here's some more. Catherine Murray, guilty of aiding and abetting fraud on the court to commit genocide. Jennifer Power, guilty of aiding and abetting fraud on the court to commit genocide. Robert Punnett, guilty of aiding and abetting fraud on the court to commit genocide. Aren't you? Yep. Aren't you? Look at they've got faces. They've got faces. Jennifer Power, Lindsay LeBlanc, Catherine Murray, Emily Bailey. Criminals, witches. And there's proof, right? Like at the door today, somebody wants to take a look at evidence. I don't have any evidence for you. I have proof for you. And nobody's getting around the proof. Evidence can be argued. Proof can't be argued. This is a letter filled with indictable crimes committed against me by Lindsay LeBlanc, who's guilty of genocide, who's guilty of aiding and abetting fraud on the court for its employer, Rico CIBC. Yeah, this Francesca, this one here is guilty of mischief, causing danger to my life. Sentence, imprisonment for life. That's sentence for that crime, Francesca. And you're not above the law, Francesca. And when you come back at me with some fucking lies, Francesca, you have to quote the bullshit lies and witchcraft that you're using to keep me away from my stolen inheritance. But you didn't, did you, Francesca? No. Just another absolute incompetent incapable with no hope and no future. Okay, Robert Punnett, you puke. Okay, so Brock Martland is a criminal. Brock Martland covers up for criminals in the province of British Columbia. Brock Martland is pretending to be a special prosecutor. Aren't you, Brock? So Brock finds out that there's an act of money laundering going on because I inform him there's an act of money laundering going on. And what does Brock say to me? Well, I'll nutshell it for you. I don't care. I don't fucking care that there's money laundering going on. And the Cullen Inquiry doesn't care that there's money laundering going on either. No. No, the public's confused about what we're doing. We're not here to keep the public safe. We're not here to fucking indict fucking criminals. No, we don't do that here. We are the fucking criminals, aren't you, Brock? Hey, Brock? Here's the correspondence between Brock and I from May 10th, 2022. Yep, here's me explaining to Brock what's going on. And Brock's like, yeah, I called ya. And I'm not going to do anything for you. So, and then the puke wishes me well in addressing my situation. Well, how was this situation created, Brock? Oh, that's right. Your barf member buddies have come once again to try to murder me. Brock recently has acquitted a guilty rapist in the province of BC here. Haven't you, Brock? So Brock could care less about the health, welfare, and safety of women in the province. Brock's here to make sure that all the rapists in BC are above the law and they can go continue on to fucking rape other women and females. Anyway, this is just more information. This is just, you need to pay attention, folks, right? I need you to pay attention to what's going on around you. And then, again, right, like I'm having to explain to somebody at the door today, like I'm not from here. I'm not from this world. Like, you've got humans and then you've got people here. And Scripture explains it all. Scripture goes into great detail about humans and people, the difference between the two. I'm people. I belong to a very, very small minority known as the peculiar people. And humans are not people. Humans are legally defined as monsters. A human is 96% identical to a chimpanzee. Humans are literally animals. I'm not an animal. I wasn't created by an animal. I wasn't created by a creature. A man created me. A man created me in his own image. I am a woman. I am not a human. I am not a female. And I'm not a person. I'm not a thing. Okay? This is all explained to everybody in this world in the scriptures. And yes, you do need to go into the Apocrypha. And you do need to understand the Apocrypha. That's scripture. Yes, it is. The books written by the false apostle Paul, that is not scripture. That is not scripture. That is a test to see if you're paying attention. Are you? I certainly hope so for your sake. Right? Because this is why you've got Rh positive blood and Rh negative blood. That determines the two different species. Humans are legally defined as monsters because they are. They're not people. These are entities that have to be governed. They have to be told what to do because they don't know what to do. Just like an animal has to be trained. Same thing with the humans. And some of them won't ever do the right thing unless they're forced. Right? Again, this is all explained in the scriptures. I just happen to be the woman that knows this truth and this is all truth, understanding, and wisdom. That's what I'm sharing with you here. I'm spending my precious time to share with you the truth. Because if you're uncomfortable, you're going to need to be comforted, like I need to be comforted. Right, so throughout Scripture, the King of Kings and his people talk about thorns, right? Thorns. Yes, that's right. Humans have thorns on their blood platelet. They are thorns. They are the thorns. There's a difference. Rh negative people have a very, very, very high IQ. Like, you're not going to be able to out-argue us. We're not arguing with you anyway. We don't communicate that way. We have the truth to tell. We tell it, and then that's over. That's the end of the discussion. 1 + 1 = 2. That's the end of the discussion. What else do you need to know? You know, the truth is elementary. And so there's a reason why I, being an Rh negative blooded woman, there's a reason why I'm tracked and targeted. It's all recorded in Scripture. And you can see the same thing happening to my people. It happens to Moses. It happens to the prophets. Right? It happened to Jesus, right? They all got tracked and targeted. Every single one of them got tracked and targeted. Well, and so because they're not people, they're animals, right? A human is an animal. So if that animal is going around and causing harm, loss, and injury, you have to purge that animal. You have to euthanize that animal. They're never going to change, man. They are what they are. And that's why I go through this, right? Like, I'm trying to explain. Because this is the first one that got hired by Daniel Carroll to steal that house. And I said to him, I said, well, if you're going to involve yourself in this situation, I'm going to tell you now that you're going to end up in prison. So I would think twice. I said, this is interest private property. It can't be sold. None of the beneficiaries owe CIBC any money. CIBC has no interest in this land. They're not named as a benefactor. I'm sorry, no. So he decided not to be involved. But then not say anything to anybody about what was happening to me. And then here's these two here. These ones were all about making the $15,000 illegally that they made. You know, if you're committing an act of fucking crime to make yourselves money, that's called racketeering. Right? The letter I sent. And then here's this one. This one listed for the first two Asians in adverse possession of that stolen property. They call this thing up. This thing lists the house with my personal stolen chattel all throughout my home, staging my home, because the first two Asians need to launder hundreds of thousands of dollars for whatever reason. And it doesn't matter the reason, but that's why they were out of that house 1 year to the day. 2 weeks later, the whole fucking thing is done. And now you've got two other criminals now using my residential address as a commercial property. And this thing doesn't care. Does not care. But it has to be held accountable, because at this point, when the first two Asians are putting up the house for illegal sale, this thing here has already taken the money laundering course about what to watch out for. About you need to be on the lookout because money laundering is going on throughout Canada through the real estate industry. And there's only one identifiable group at the heart of all that money laundering. And I have nothing to do with what they're choosing to do. I'm only the woman who brings the truth up to the surface. Right? I'm not racist at all. But, I mean, take a look at these names. Those aren't Caucasian names. Those are not Caucasian names. No, they're not. No. And so that's where, that's where I'm at. I'm over here speaking up about what's going on. Because court actions could be heavy. So basically you can bring any court decision from any other jurisdiction into the court here, because like I explained to you, all those with license to practice legal are all, British Accreditation Registry members. Right? According to the maxim, if in a case any undeserved or unfair advantage has been gained by a party invoking the jurisdiction of the court, the same requires to be neutralized. So see, that's exactly what happened when CIBC, criminal organization CIBC, hired their liars to go into that fucking whorehouse here to file a fraud on the court petition to steal that house. They had an undeserved and unfair advantage. So here's a transcript of an individual who is teaching about how corrupt the courts are and how to get remedy and relief from what's going on. So how did Daniel Carroll get the verdict to steal that house? Well, he lied. And then the liar on the bench lapped up those lies. And then those two liars spewed their fucking lies all over me to commit an act of hate and genocide and racism, misogyny, hatred of women. Absolute hatred and disrespect of women, and even worse, a widow. So, undeserved or unfair advantage that's been gained by the court, by the other party, invoking the jurisdiction of the court because they're using the court as a tool to get their verdict. So they can't, because if they do it unlawfully or illegally, the court has a legal obligation to neutralize the order or cancel the order. In other words, no man should suffer harm because of the fault of the court. So if the court screws up, you have a remedy against the criminals in the court and the corporation. Because the corporation is a person. Right? All transmitting commercial utilities are persons, are designated as persons or vessels. So fraud and justice never dwell together. Fraud corrupts justice regardless of the good faith or just intentions. So by lying and committing perjury or withholding evidence or misleading the court or attacking someone, that's fraud. And fraud doesn't have an expiration date. Like, there's no statute of limitations on a claim of fraud. And yet these fucking barf member liars, they're constantly fucking trying to sew together these fucking loopholes where they're somehow above the law. No. You know, so this is what's going on. Buyer beware, Benjamin Howe and Sandra Dennis. You were in possession of property obtained by BC Supreme Court genocide crime. Trespassers removed today. Well, that's yesterday, right? You don't play victim to circumstances you created. Everything you've done is fraud. Section 42 of the Criminal Code of Canada. Everyone is justified in peaceably entering a dwelling house or real property by day to take possession of it if they, under whose authority they act, are lawfully entitled to possession of it. I am the woman lawfully entitled to possession of the property located at 604 Polyanthus Crescent. It is stolen property, it's in trust private property, and it has been obtained by the commission of a petition that is fraud upon the court. And so what we can see here on Twitter is that tweet has been looked at 47 different times. And that's why there was 2 males at the door today. That's why. So the other day, well, maybe I'll stop this here and then I'll talk about something else that's going on right now. Right, because I had read out, now these are the faxes that got sent out. I'm going to show these to you because these tweets go out, right? Because these public servants are not serving me. These public servants are ignoring me completely and entirely. And when I did a live yesterday, I read out this. Well, this is a fax that I created, right? Like, I'm trying to fix this. I have to fix this. I'm the one fixing it. I'm the only one who can fix it. I'm the only one with first-hand knowledge of what's gone on. This is nobody else's job but mine. It's a 2-page fax. Every single page is $2, and I have no money. And so this went out. So this cost me close to $40 to fax out. $40 I don't have. So David Eby, you know who that is. You know who Nikki Sharma is. You know who, well, go do some research on Peter Juk. And then you've got Mike Farnworth, Ger Jacks, Mark Race of Oceanside Real Estate, Scotiabank manager Jackie Seabloom, and the Police Complaints Commission. Because there's a pattern of behavior towards me when I report crime to law enforcement. They won't serve me. They serve the criminals instead. And then so I explain in this fax as succinctly and directly as I possibly can that yesterday I had to walk through the property to see what of my personal chattel is being utilized by these criminals, because that's what they are. That's their title. They're committing crime. Mischief causing danger to life. The sentence for that is imprisonment for life because you don't care about your neighbor. So the only thing these two care about, Benjamin Howe and Sandra Dennis, it's clearly money. And their Halfam fucking Holdings fucking Inc. portfolio. right? That's what they really care about. They don't care about law. They don't care about my health, welfare, or my safety. They could care less. They care about money. That's all they care about. And constantly calling law enforcement to disturb my peace and to harass me and to intimidate me and to assault me and to gaslight me. But they know. They all know. So Greer Jacks, right, like for the last 19 months, there have been a whole bunch of emails going back and forth between those who are informed that that's stolen property. Yes. So if you need to read that, you can pause the video and take a read. I mean, I'm telling the truth, right? And where I come from, your behavior constitutes how you're described. Like if you're lying, you're a liar. You know, if you're committing crime, you're a criminal. Like if you're gaslighting me, you're a witch. If you're engaging me in war of any type, you're a witch. If you're coming for me and mine, you're a witch. You're a child of the devil. And I will not separate your actions, I will not separate your behavior from describing who you are. You are what you do. Daniel Carroll, David Eby, Nikki Sharma. So I don't need any more flying monkeys coming and attacking me. And what would be the point of me learning the way of the heathen? What would be the point of me going through the entire process of laying the criminal charges or laying the private information and then going through that entire fucking heathen hamster wheel of fucking get abso-fucking-lutely nowhere fast to hold all these guilty criminals accountable? Like where I come from, those trespassers are going from that house into a prison cell. You don't need to have a hearing. You don't need to have a trial. It's been proven beyond reasonable doubt, and I'm not going to entertain anybody's fucking opinion. Same thing with Halfam Holdings. You are guilty of mischief causing danger to my life. The sentence for that is imprisonment for life. There's nothing to talk about. You don't have a defense. You can't argue. I'm not going to entertain your bullshit. You need to be imprisoned for life. You've now decided, knowing full well what's going on, you've decided to aid and abet an act of fraud on the court, to commit an act of genocide against an innocent woman who the world hates and wants to basically destroy. That's what you've done here. And the system doesn't work for victims of crime. The system doesn't work for victims of crime. No. Let's see if I can find this real quick. You know, do you remember me mentioning that I watch? Well, I do. I do watch. Very closely I watch. Lawyers, well, British Accreditation Registry, right? They all belong to it. You know, forced adoption, you should know. Okay. Now, March 1st, 2023. There's a media statement provided by public servants acting as the province of British Columbia, and it seems that we have discovered through the Joint Illegal Gaming Investigations Team of the Combined Forces Special Enforcement Unit of British Columbia they've conducted a significant multi-year investigation into money laundering and other offenses. And I've lived in this town since 1995. I was a barber for many, many, many years, which means I had interaction with literally thousands of different individuals. Okay, when you're a barber, they're moving in and out. They're moving in and out, right? So even though being around others completely drains me for years and years and years, that's what I'm trained to do. I'm a qualified, trained barber. So, but I'm the kind of woman who's asking questions, and then I'm the kind of woman who's then listening. So this Christopher Constantine, just an absolute POS. Just an absolute fucking piece of garbage. Oh, and it's been appointed as a special prosecutor. Well, who gave that thing that designation? Is a senior Victoria Liar? Yes. A private practice? Really? As opposed to public practice? So then that's a private prosecution then. If this male monster is in private practice. What are you practicing? What are you practicing, Christopher Constantine? I contacted this Christopher Constantine when the first act of genocide was going on. It basically told me to go fuck myself. Yeah, it didn't care that my son was about to be trafficked to Canada's protected pedophiles. Oh, okay, so blah, 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 blah. Oh, look at this is Peter Juke. Yeah. Assistant Deputy Attorney General, Criminal Justice Branch. Oh, I don't think so. You gotta read this. If you have eyes that see and ears that hear, this is gonna make you sick to your stomach. So here we've got David Eby. So who's doing the money laundering? Well, it's Paul King Jim. Again, remember how I told you about surnames? 3-letter surnames are more than likely Asian. I'm not a racist, but I am paying attention. This is a problem. After reviewing and considering the RCC, Crown Counsel, really? Concluded that no charges would be approved. So what just happened there? What did we just all become witness to? We just all became witness to an Asian guilty of money laundering and other offenses being acquitted by the guilty, coven of corruption acting as the criminal justice branch of the private for-profit province of British Columbia. That's what you just saw. That's what you just witnessed. So that's why these 2 Asians who got into my house to launder money, that's why this criminal justice branch is going to do nothing about what's happening, nothing about what they did, and nothing about what the loss, harm, and injury that they did to me, because now we've got proof. Now we've got proof of absolute systematic fucking corruption and the constant fucking acquittal of the guilty in British Columbia here by these fucking pukes with membership to the BARF. This is proof. This is fucking proof right here. Yeah, you should read this. It's disgusting. It's fucking disgusting. These are absolute incompetent fucking criminals we're dealing with here that are pretending to be law and justice. The criminal justice branch in British Columbia. Proposed charges. Have you read this? Proposed charges. Proposed? Potential obstacles to prosecution? What the fuck are the obstacles? There are none. The obstacles to prosecution are you are absolutely fucking ignorant, incompetent, fucking useless, lazy criminals. Isn't that right, Johnny Van Camp? This is disgusting. This is disgusting. If you read through this, I read it. I wanted to barf after I did read it. So the message to money laundering Asians in British Columbia is fucking go for it. Go for it. You are above the law. Fucking have at her. Have at her. That's what this is telling you. That's what this is speaking to you in your face like a fucking bullhorn. Conclusion. Oh, conclusion. Recommendations. Legal advice. Witchcraft advice. That's what that should say. Cullen Commission. Joke. Legal advice. Fucking irrelevant. Legislative changes. Fucking irrelevant. Completely. So they're wasting their time. They're lying and they're covering up for money laundering criminals in BC here. Sorry, I have a lot of tabs open. Hold on here. There was another one that I was looking at the other day that just made me sick to my stomach. Injustice makes me sick to my stomach. I'm so sorry, but it just does. Sorry. Bear with me here. I don't want to waste your time. Okay, where did it go? It's got to be here somewhere. So here's what's happening in the province of British Columbia. These criminals acting as the BC Attorney Generals, they're constantly being informed that they're useless. They're constantly being informed by that they're useless by members of the community. Do you think that they care? Do you think that lights a fire under their fucking Satan worshipping asses to go do what's right? God, of course not. Of course not. Oh, come on. Oh, I'm so sorry about this. I'm so sorry about this. I don't know where it went. Public safety. Oh, corruption, RCMP. That's a good one to read. Yeah, if you're the victim of a crime, you don't want to go talk to the persons acting as the RCMP unless you want to be assaulted again. Oh man, come on, it was so good too. What is this? If fraudsters don't pay court-ordered restitution in Ontario, it's up to the victims to try to collect. Right, so again, right, what you got here is proof that the persons who act as the community and as the court do not care about the rights of victims. They do not care about making the victim whole. They don't care. You're on your own. Right? So if you're the victim of a crime and then you have to literally fight to the death to access justice and to access your right to be made whole, it's a criminal's paradise here. It's a criminal's fucking paradise in Canada. Or you can be a criminal in Canada here and get away with everything that you want to do to somebody else, like they've done to me and my family. Oh, damn it, where did it go? It was so good. Damn it. What big crash? Was it here? No. No. Gee, I would usually have it right here. Anyway, I can't find it right now. Anyway, if you
Maybe I'll put this in the... This is a really good website to go take a look at, donaldbest.ca. He just basically goes through the amount of absolute corruption. Just beyond corruption. Corrupt senior Ontario lawyers. You see what I mean? Like, they're everywhere. They're everywhere. Just absolute corruption. Canada's broken. Canada's corrupt backroom judge. Well, who do you think did this to me? Who do you think has done this to me and my family? Right? I mean, hey, you try to get anything done, if you're the victim of a crime in Canada, and all the fucking roadblocks go up, all the fucking red tape goes up, nobody's gonna fucking give a fuck about you or trying to help you. Just corruption from the top down. And if the head, fat pig, is corrupt, everybody underneath that fucking fat pig, sorry, I didn't mean to say fat, fat cat lip flapper is what I should have said. If the head of the snake is corrupt, the entire body is corrupt. Right? So if Charles Windsor is corrupt, then all of Charles Windsor's servants, public servants, are also corrupt. If Justin Trudeau is corrupt, all of the federal public servants are corrupt. If David Eby is corrupt, all of the public servants in BC are corrupt. That's the way it works. And that's not a joke. I'm so tired.